Hi, Pete Moore, Mart TV. A little bit of a difference. You've probably seen the videos we've been doing lately on the website. We hope you like them. Mostly it's modern kit. I'm a bit of a fan of old stuff as well. And we've got a new section in the videos called Blast from the Past. A bit naff, I know. But basically, it's going to cover stuff that is available as second hand and you can't really get it from a shop in terms of like brand new. I'm indebted to Henry Krank & Co, who have a massive collection of second-hand firearms of all sorts, who very kindly, to start off the series, lent me this Russian Mosin Nagant sniper rifle in 7.62 by 54R. A little bit of history first, and then we'll get into the other parts of the vid. This was the Russians' first sort of bolt-action repeater. Allegedly, it was a combination of a gentleman from Belgium called Nagant and a Russian army captain called Mosin. Oddly enough, the Russians don't call them Mosin Nagants, they just call them Mosins. But it's called, in 1891 it first saw the light of day. As you can see, it's a very long rifle, almost musket-like in its layout. And it stayed as the standard infantry rifle right up to the end of the Second World War for the Russians, and it's been used by so many satellite states and other countries. It's not true. Eventually they made a carbine version because this is a 29-inch barrel, and as you can see, it's massive. It makes an F-class barrel look quite short. But this is the sniper gun, the Snayperskia. The Russians are big into sniping. The Russians pretty much are big into most things, and it's very much a question of quantity over quality. I'm not saying the guns weren't shootable and good, but they weren't that well made. And I think at one stage in the field in the Second World War, the Russians had 50,000 snipers in action, which is a lot more than probably the whole of the Allied forces combined. The gun also is unique, and it fires a rim round called a 7.62 by 54R, and it's pretty much, in terms of what it can offer, as we shall see later on, a 30-06. It's a powerful cartridge, firing something like a 150 grain ball or thereabouts. Later on, the round was kept, though the sniper guns became semi-automatic things like the Simonov, the Tokarev, and guns of that nature. The cartridge stays. It's very popular in Finland as well. In fact, the Finns made their own version of the Nagant, which they called the M39, with barrels made by Seiko of all people. Quite interesting. Yeah, but it's a clunky old gun in some ways. In other ways, it's a piece of history. And we were both very surprised by how this one shot, as you'll see later on. But anyway, that's a little bit of intrigue about Nagant. I'm not an expert on these things, so I'm not pretending to be. So let's carry on. We're going to have a quick walk around the rifle as such. It's quite a conventional gun. Twin lug bolt. Let's see if I'll take the bolt out a lot easier. Twin locking lug bolt. A bit like a Mauser from that point of view. Well, a little bit like a Mauser. And rather than having a safety lug at the rear like some do, this massive great lump of metal here with the bolt handle on it is the safety lug, which, as you'll see, engages in there. So basically, if anything lets go, if that lets go, you're in real trouble. Also, on the sniper gun, the bolt handle is turned down. On the standard infantry rifle, it sticks straight up, which is a bit weird. Even then, as you can see, they've had to put the scope quite high up to clear it. Okey-dokey. Right, this gun has a 29-inch barrel as standard, which is massive. It's a standard weight barrel. Sights consists of a tangent type at the rear that goes up to 2,000. I'm assuming it's meters and not versts, because I don't know anything about Russian old stuff. It's a straight U-notch. Very optimistic for a military rifle, but back then all military rifles could technically shoot up to 2,000 yards. Up front, you've got a post which gives you some elevation correction, I believe. And it can also be drifted backwards and forwards. The stock is probably beech or something similar. They take quite a battering, as you can see. This one's been restained. Feed is from a 5-round fixed magazine. If I can get this open, which I can't because it's stuck, so I apologise for that. 5-round magazine, and the gun loads from the top with stripper clips. Obviously, you can't strip a clip on the sniper, but you can single load. The unusual thing about the Nagant compared to the British 303, they both use a rimmed cartridge. You can see here, it's a massive, great rim on the cartridge. Is that on the British gun, when you load it with clips, you had to stagger the rounds. So when they went in the magazine, they stacked up. If you didn't get it right, then you'd be trying to push a rim forward that's behind the rim of the one in front. And the Nagant had an interrupter, so basically you'd load in 5 rounds, and then as you operated the bolt, the interrupter would come in and it would push down the rounds below the one ready to be rammed, and that way you get smooth feed. Safety catch is a real weirdo, and it's quite horrendous. You pull back and turn it. I don't know if you saw that, but it's heavy, it's awkward. Pull back and turn it. And I imagine that most of these guys never even bother putting safety catches on, because I don't think I would. So the stock is very musket-like, straight hand, squared off, typically Russian. The 29-inch gun weighs 8.8 pounds, which is pretty heavy for a rifle. So they did do made a 20-inch carbine version later on in the war with a side-folding bayonet fixed. Sniper guns weren't issued with a bayonet, which was a spike type. The infantry ones were. Oddly enough, did a little bit of research. 37 million guns and counting were produced by the Russians, which is a lot of rifles. As well, that's neither here nor there. As I said before, there's 50,000 sniper guns are in existence because the Russians did big on everything. They also had better triggers because they have the actual standard infantry gun has a horrible, awful, great long raunchy pull, which nobody cared about. And these guns have been fiddled a bit from factory. It is said that originally guns that showed better accuracy were selected as sniper rifles, which everybody says, the Germans, the Americans, the British, all about their guns. And in the end, in the beginning, I believe it, but when demand outstrips supply, then I think it's just get the next gun off the rack and slap a scope onto it. This is called a PU, and it's a 3.5 power fixed focus, which is a bit weird. We've been shooting it today, and it sort of comes into its own about 100, but up close it's a little bit fuzzy. There's no provision for anything else really. It's a well-made design, and it has BDC turrets, as you can see here. I'm not quite sure about the markings. They have a 0 mark in each place, and we've zeroed this, and it's reasonably accurate. But what is interesting is that this big screw here comes off, and the scope fits on a socket, and if you look there, ball mount. So it goes in the front like that, and basically, as I said before, this is a standard infantry rifle that either by dint of being on the rack next or by dint of being an accurate gun was converted to a sniper. This one-piece mounting pad screws straight through the action. These are lock screws, and as well as this that clamps the scope in position, you can see these 2 screws here, one at the top, one at the bottom. They can be used to rough zero. This may sound a bit weird to us Westerners, but though we'll see a picture of the reticle later on, this is what's known as a moving reticle scope. When you twiddle the dials, I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's not the prisms inside that moves. It would on a conventional scope that we would understand today. The whole reticle physically moves in the view. So if you lay in like 20 clicks one way and 3 to the other, it goes from the middle across to the left or right and up or down. And it's the weirdest thing. If you adjust it and say the pointer ends up like at 5 o'clock, it's a bugger to shoot. But the Russians actually thought of that, much to my surprise. And what you do, you'd center the reticle by using these the BDC turrets, and they've got stops on, so you can't go over. So each one was set to 0, and then you would slack off these 2 and rough zero on elevation by either pushing down on one of these or pulling up. And once you've done it, the top one is staked, so that becomes the position, because obviously you can take the scope off and put it back on. So these will both be not loose, but movable. And then once you've got the elevation right, say probably 100 yard 0, you would then lock this or stake in position, tighten up the lower screw, and so you then means that you could then zero it and you wouldn't have to do much. And basically we zeroed this, and after a little bit of fiddling around, the reticle is almost still central, almost. If you wanted to adjust windage, you do have a bit more of a problem. On the back of the mounts, you can see there's like a horseshoe of metal. That's there for a purpose. That's actually been ground away, probably at factory when these were zeroed at factory. So if it's on and you can grind metal away, you can then bring the scope in at the back because it will hinge on this ball and socket joint. And if you need to go the other way, you can then pack it out with shims. Yeah, okay. It's not as we understand it, but it seems to work. And let's say it goes on, comes off quite easily. Whether or not the snipers took them off, I doubt it. I mean, if I was a sniper then with this rifle and I hadn't shooting how I wanted it, I would just leave the thing alone. I wouldn't bloody touch it, because as we all know, taking the scope off a rifle, with few exceptions, means you've got to check zero. And I was surprised how well it shot today. I really was. It's a bit high, as you can see. I put a cheek piece on it, and it's a bit booty because it's big steel backplate, but it shot quite well and it's reasonably comfortable. So that's the PU scope, and we'll then move on to some shooting. Okay, just to chat about the ammunition. Russian stuff, military stuff, used to come I think in 150 grain as a standard ball load, with heavier loads later on. But I imagine that most of these guns just shot the 150 grain standard ball load. It was steel cased with corrosive primers, so you can imagine the state of the guns. But I don't suppose they got cleaned that much in combat. We put this over the chronograph. This is, sorry, I apologise. This is again from Henry Krank. PPU's 182 grain full metal jacket boat tail. I'd say it's 11.8 grams. And I thought it was going to be a little bit too heavy for the gun, because I think it's got a 1 in 10 twist, or nearest damn it 1 in 10. And I wasn't expecting miracles. However, over the chronograph, it was averaging 2.721 feet per second with an extreme velocity spread of about 32 feet per second, which I thought was pretty good. And get this, energy from this bullet is a staggering 2,992 foot-pounds, which is a lot. And it's definitely, people say it's basically a Russian 30-06. I'd be inclined to agree with them. So there's around there. And so it's interesting because the only other round like it today is the 303 British, which has pretty much just had it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the 303 British. It's not the most accurate round, but we really use it purely for classic shooting with SMLEs and number 4s and that sort of thing. Whereas this round, in hunting load, soft tip, and also in match configurations, is used in Finland, Russia, and probably most of Russia's old satellites, for hunting definitely, and probably for even map shooting, and also in sniper rifles and medium machine guns like the Russian PK, again used by ex-Soviet bloc. It always amazes me that the Russians never produced a rimless 30 cal like we did with the 308, because in a belted machine gun, still got to pull the case out backwards to ram it. But yeah, the ammo shot really well. We were shooting, well, we've got some pictures of the group later on, but we were shooting 1.5, 1.7 inches, and that is not bad. That means if we're talking sniper rifle, call that 1.5 inches. So at 200 yards, it's a 3-inch group. At 400 yards, it's a 6-inch group. At 500 yards, it's a 12-inch group. And bearing in mind what sniper rifles are designed to do, then it will do it in spades. The only thing is the low power of the optic will limit your range, but you know, it's surprising. It really is. But if you see anything at the gates, which I think most of our shooters have, about Vasily Zaitsev, there's this scene where he shoots a communication wire in half, which we all think is just a little bit of Hollywood there. But anyway, no matter. Great cartridge, great rifle. Let's see it shot. Okay, here we are, my assistant Ed. Show you single loading up the Nagant. So you can't use a stripper clip because of the scope. And also it does have interrupters, so sometimes after the third round you need to push them down to get them all in. That's going in quite nicely. So there we are. So you just ram it home. Take it away, mate.